Hey, welcome to the weekend summary. Great to have you here and so pleased that you decided to watch. It shows how committed you really are to taking control of your health and regaining your happiness and freedom. And it really shows a commitment that you are really up for adding life to your years. And I'm so proud of you for joining me on this optional weekend. Now, this weekend and every weekend moving forward, I'll try and keep it really short. And with the help of my guests, try and recap and cement some of the things that you learnt during the week. And by the way, my gosh, didn't we cover a lot last week? Now today, I want to start the weekend off by asking Tom Watson, and you may recognise that name. He was the previous deputy leader of the Labour Party. I want to ask him why government seems so reluctant to change the food guidelines.
As we now know, this is wrong. And I even heard that Matt Hancock once went on a low-carb diet and lost some weight. So with all that happening, why on earth have we still got these crazy guidelines? Why won't the government do anything about it?
Yeah, well, I think that citadel has nearly been breached because there are just hundreds of thousands of people that are consciously choosing to ignore government advice. But the Public Health England experts would say they can only go off evidence that nutritional science yields. But of course, you then look at this thing called nutritional science and you realise that nearly every study involving foodstuffs is funded by the food production industry. That even if the leadership of those industries is virtuous, institutionally they have a vested interest to maintain the status quo because there's half a dozen conglomerates that give us all these ultra-processed foods, and the consequences of realizing that what they're feeding us is making us chronically unhealthy. It's just too much.
Yeah, you wrote it on page 10 in your book. You put, but the health journey for me has also been politically instructive. There's a golden rule of politics: the more harm an industry inflicts, the greater the lobbying spend. And that's what people are up against, isn't it? I heard the other day that Just Eat, which is that little middleman that sits between home deliveries and all the fast food, little chip shops, kebab shops, which is probably delivering the wrong food at the wrong time of day, is now a FTSE 100 company. It's just a little man with a little bit of software, and that's been a bit derogatory. But they've got one of the biggest lobbying departments in the UK because they know at some point, the shit's going to hit the fan and people are going to go, hang on, just delivering masses of sugar late at night.
I'll tell you, I'll come out on that in a minute, but when it comes to lobby power, and thank you for mentioning that in the book, there's an amazing academic on the east coast of America called Dr. Marion Nestle, who was actually followed by investigators working for Coca-Cola because her work was so threatening to the sugar industry that they needed to hear every word she uttered in any public meeting in order to try and catch her out. And Marion Nestle told me, she's an octogenarian, she's a veteran of this debate. She told me that Coca-Cola had spent $100 million globally to challenge policies and regulations that would reduce refined sugar in our diets, whether it be the sugar levy in the UK or restrictions on advertising in places like Chile, which has done quite a lot to sort of reduce sugar intake. Now that is power, isn't it? $100 million to lobby in favour of something that is proven to be bad for you.
Don't worry that we haven't yet talked too much about food, and in fact certainly the foods you're supposed to be eating or foods that are healthy for you. But we've got weeks and weeks to cover all the good stuff, and what we've tried to do so far is to set the groundworks, the foundations, the cornerstones that everything else will hinge on. Throughout the next few weeks, I'm going to help you make changes at both the conscious and the subconscious level so that you don't have to use willpower and self-control. I'm going to set you free. I'm going to help you get true freedom. You'll no longer be a pawn in a dangerous and manipulative game of chess that's being played out by the big food companies playing against nature. Instead, you'll consciously decide all of your own moves. Now, you know this already, and I'm sure like me, you've tried to lose weight before and, well, diets just don't work. After that maybe initial weight loss, that dreaded plateau happens, and then before you know it, statistically, more people put on more weight than they had before they started the diet. And then the whole thing starts again. They try a different diet, a different sort of method, and again, they fail, and that weight keeps creeping up and up and up. And as we've discussed all week, the problem is twofold. Diets look in the wrong area, not once, but twice. Diets tend to focus on the belly and not the brain. And then most diets focus on calories and not hormones. And as I keep saying to you, it's not calories and it's not the belly that we need to focus on, but hormones and the brain. When making food decisions, the most important thing to do is to not let your gremlin in on the act. And remember, your gremlin, this little chap here, he's fast, he's quick, he has dirty techniques. His job is all about survival. His job is to eat as much food as possible. His job is to seek out sugar, salt, and fat. And what you've got to do is you've got to divert his attention when it comes to making food choices. And that is what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about in coming weeks. You have to take action rapidly. You see, if you dwell for too long, unless you get really, really good at managing this gremlin, it's gonna win. It's gonna win every single time. And while we're learning new habits, we'll have to debate these new habits with the gremlin as we go along. But once we get full control, there's gonna be less debates, no maybes, no discussing. It will just be a case of saying no to your gremlin. It's a bit like teaching a dog to sit. It takes a while to master a dog, doesn't it? But once you do it, once you've been assertive for long enough, once your dog knows that he'll get maybe a different reward at the end, maybe a cuddle when he does what you want him to do, when you bark that command, sit in future, what happens? The dog does it immediately. That's you controlling your pet in the same way you need to control your gremlin. One of the things I hope I got across in the week, that moving forward, you're really going to enjoy your food choices. And actually, even though we're going to change what you eat, you're never going to feel hungry again. And that's really good news. The good news is you're not going to have to count calories. You're not going to have to do portion control or portion sizes. And even though we're going to change what you eat, I promise you, you're going to have bags and bags of energy. And again, I promise you're never going to be hungry. And that's one of the reasons that I'm not a big fan of things like Weight Watchers, where they count calories and their obsession with portion sizes. And it's also why, if you think about it, I haven't asked you to go weighing yourself every day. In fact, I only suggest that you weigh yourself 3 times on the bathroom scales throughout the entire reset. And I'll be totally honest, that's really not even for your benefit. It's mainly so that I've got some data, some information coming back from you so that I can spread the word about this course to others that haven't yet done the course. Oh, and while I'm on it, Weight Watchers. Well, I'm not going to have a real go at them, but here's a good friend of mine, nutritionist Victoria Fenton, who maybe has a similar opinion.
My ultimate goal would be to make people like me completely irrelevant, because people are caring for themselves from the very beginning, and they just look after their vehicles. But the reality is that where we're at right now is that we don't realize the stresses that we're under and the strain that we put our bodies through until it's a bit too late. And then we go for quick fixes. So you might not want to knock Weight Watchers, but I do, like regularly. Yes, it will help you lose weight in the short term, and that's wonderful. But the mentality it leaves you with is that food is like this sins or points, or it's like this equation, and it's complicated. And you develop this guilt relationship with food, and it makes this whole weird disordered eating mentality for many people, like more people than it helps. And it also slows down your metabolism, back to the thyroid. If they're putting you on a really restricted calorie diet and yet allowing you to eat these little weird cereal bars, which are basically sugar, and then like it's so unnecessary when you could walk into the supermarket and just go to that fruit and veg aisle, just do the outer edges of the supermarket. There's no need to go into the middle where all the junk stuff is, or where all the Weight Watchers products are, and just do it that way. You don't need to develop this weird, oh, that's X points, that's that amount of, it just makes no sense. It's not human health, that's just weight loss. And the reality is for weight loss is that, yes, it's about calories, but you have to look at what your calories mean in terms of what does your body do with them. And if it's eating sugar and you're just having this kind of, or even, really refined foods, breads and pastas or whatever, it's really quick, comes in, burn the energy, wonderful. And if you've got excess energy already, it will store it as fat. That's how calories work. If you're eating vegetables, which your gut has to work on and your bowel has to do stuff with, and you're eating things like almonds, like calorie for calorie, almonds they look really calorific. The amount of fiber in an almond that your digestive system has to break through and that really helps your gut and your gut biome, that's so much more beneficial to you to lose weight as a kind of snack, as a handful of almonds, than whatever, nut ball bar that's filled with honey or whatever that you can get on, well, you can buy them anywhere, but these kind of diet foods, there's not really any need. Just eat proper foods and you'll be very satiated.
What Victoria was talking about there is how cutting calories just cuts down your metabolism. Let's also recap something else from last week. And that was really something that I think is probably the most important thing of all. And that is, once we get through next week, once we start to change what it is that you eat, I want you to be conscious of the fact that you shouldn't really eat food, certainly while you're trying to lose weight, until you are genuinely hungry. This alone, just one habit of only eating when you're hungry, when you are genuinely hungry, that could be the one habit that makes the difference between you regaining your health or not. Now, here's the brilliant Dr. David Unwin to close today's session.
It's growing. It's a new, exciting thing, really. I find a lot of young doctors are beginning to take this up, where we're looking at all aspects of lifestyle, which includes, obviously, diet, and for me, a low-carb diet, but also exercise, also how you're sleeping. Do you enjoy your life? All sorts of different things. And those aspects of lifestyle really impact on health, particularly impact on chronic disease. It's so refreshing to think about that with patients instead of drugs. So we've got an idea of lifestyle medication instead of lifelong medication. And there was a wonderful lifestyle medicine conference in Leeds recently. We were expecting 30 doctors, and at 250 we had to stop people from booking, and there was a waiting list of young doctors wanting to come. I was the oldest person in the room. They were all young doctors. They were dead keen, and each of them had paid £200 to come and given up a Saturday, fascinated by this idea of helping patients to understand lifestyle as a route to better health. And if you can think about it from a doctor's point of view, this is cheerful medicine. And it helps with patient resilience, but it helps with doctor resilience as well, because it isn't fun. It's not fun to see your patients get sicker and keep adding in drugs over years. That's what I very, very nearly retired 5 years ago, because it is so depressing to watch your patients as they get older, and you add a drug and then they deteriorate a bit more, and then you add another drug and then you up the dose, and then they get side effects, and then you end up giving them drugs for the side effects. Very depressing. And if you contrast that with the idea of my patients now weighing so much less, losing weight, taking exercise, they're coming to me with stories of success of what they've done. Photos of this is me in my new outfit. These are the holidays I've done. I've started cycling, I've started yoga. It's a whole different paradigm of medicine, really. Use drugs by all means, they're sometimes absolutely necessary, but I was using them far too easily. And lifestyle medicine as a choice for patients, something you can offer them, is really interesting.
Lifestyle medicine is exactly what this Reset program is offering. And we'll be covering such topics over coming weeks as proper breathing techniques, how to get a better night's sleep, a little bit on exercise as well. Now, have a great day, and if I don't see you tomorrow, I look forward to our session together on Monday.
I hope you found that really, really interesting. A couple of weeks ago, I was with Sir Richard Branson, a couple of his astronauts, a gentleman called Tim Weeks, who was, or is, should I say, Kate and William's nutritionalist. And I was giving a speech around insulin resistance. Now you might go, well, what's that got to do with weight loss? Well, the answer is quite a lot. You see, we believe insulin resistance is a key component, a driving force in nearly all of the chronic illnesses that you and I probably worry about. And the great news is, as you start to lose that weight, your cells start to have better sensitivity towards insulin. So not only will you be losing weight, you'll be reducing your risk of nearly all the chronic illnesses that fill up hospital beds across the country. Anyway, if you'd like to find out more about that, why don't you watch this video?